We are live with you once again on another Johnny Torch live broadcast. Hey, here we are. Broadcast number 279, and we have Torch News Roundup number 306. So, welcome in. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show. Oh, please. Don't mention it. Don't mention it. Yeah, we're going to do a broadcast. Saturday usually is the day. Sometimes I hold it over for Sunday. Didn't have a whole lot to talk about, and I was scrounging up some topics last night. Ran out of time because, like I said, if I don't get a show going by like 11 o'clock, I run out of energy. But I'm glad I put the show off for another day because now we've got some pretty cool stuff to talk about. Enough for a whole show. In fact, probably too much for a whole show. Either this is going to go long or we're probably going to have to drop some subjects for another time. But we've got a pretty interesting topic to start with. I usually start, with something small. We build up to the big story. But to be honest with you, I want to make sure I talk about this while it's still in recent memory. So we're going to talk about the Avengers Doomsday trailer that just dropped. And we'll talk about that first. So let's see. All right, now I didn't get any screen grabs from this because, like I said, this was really off the cuff the show tonight. So we're just going to talk about it. I just watched the trailer for the second or third time here. And so from memory, I'm going to try to go over some of the stuff here. And let's see if we can get a feeling for what happens. We're introduced to, I suppose, Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom voice, which it sounds nothing like Robert Downey Jr. And I don't know if they put like a little vocoder on it or something. Did they sweeten his voice digitally or anything? But it doesn't sound anything like Robert Downey Jr. And I was really surprised, although I suppose I shouldn't be. But this sounded like Doom, like any Doom actor you would think should sound. So I know there's a lot of people out there poo-pooing, oh, Robert Downey Jr.'s Dr. Doom. Why didn't they give us Mad Mickelson? Why didn't they give us... Because this is a comic book, you know what I mean? Like, there are so many times in the comics where something interesting happens, and it's a twist, and it's like, wow, Dr. Doom looks like Iron Man. How did that happen? And it's like, I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt to make this interesting. Now, we all know this is probably going to be soft rebooted after Secret Wars into a new Iron Man, a new Captain America, and so on and so forth. That's probably the way this is going to go. If it isn't, I'd be very surprised. And, it's very strange to try to keep dragging out this franchise and not cast the star characters, because we went through, like, I think 2 phases of that without it working. And to keep doing that, I think there's a German word for it, which is insanity, for doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, you're not going to get to the heights of fandom by doing the same thing. Now, the funny thing is, a lot of people are already taking to Twitter and venting about how this looks meh, it looks okay, it is nothing special, I'm not excited for this. And to be honest, my first reaction to the trailer was also, it's okay. It's not that exciting. But there's 2 things that you have to consider. On the one hand, this is the first official trailer. This is really the beginning of the rollout to December. And, we're not going to lead with the biggest foot forward. We're going to try to ease into the pool. You know what I mean? I don't think we're going to see a story trailer until like 2 weeks before the movie comes out. This is basically, all the toys in the toy box. We see, all the characters we have right here in front of us. Get your appetite whetted, so to speak, and get, little enthusiasm going for what this is going to all lead to. The second thing is the trailer basically doesn't give us anything that we don't already know. Steve Rogers is back. We knew that Chris Evans was going to be in this, basically the first teaser. Thor is afraid of Doom. Now, we already heard the Thor soliloquy or monologue in the second teaser. The X-Men are the classic Fox X-Men are in this, and they're facing dire circumstances. Again, we knew this. So for people to act like, well, this is not interesting, this is not exciting. Well, I understand where you're coming from because we kind of knew all this was going to happen. I mean, they didn't show us anything new. But again, this is sort of just to whet the appetite. So I'm not going to come down on this as if, oh, it's boring and it's, inconsequential, because it did get me pretty excited. I'm going to tell you some of the things I liked and some of the things I'm not too crazy about. For starters, I do like the fact that they're leading with Thor being scared, because it leads gravitas to Doom immediately. Because I know it's sort of like I said on Twitter, it's sort of like a trope, a writer's trope, which is you take the toughest guy in the room and you say, gee, actually he's even kind of afraid. And that lends credibility to Doom right off the bat. Now, they tried to do this in, I guess, Infinity War with Thor, with Hulk and Thanos, because, Hulk gets a beat down from Thanos, and I honestly didn't believe that could happen. Where the Hulk comes to just Thanos. Of course, they dropped the ball and they never did that. But I mean, that was the idea, and that's kind of what you want to do with something like this. You take your strongest guy, your heaviest hitter, and you say, even he don't think he can beat this guy. And that's what you do. And basically right now, the last man standing is Thor. I mean, we don't have Iron Man. We don't have, we have Cap, but we'll talk about that in a second. Again, I like seeing the X-Men, seeing James Marsden finally in the Cyclops classic costume. I love that. Seeing Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen again as Xavier and Eric. Again, you can't help but have the feels, because this is how it all started. I mean, I know people want to go back to Blade. All right, I'll give Blade its props, but Blade kind of operated outside of Marvel. People went to see Blade not thinking it was a Marvel movie for the most part. They just wanted to see a good vampire movie. And then it was kind of, well, yeah, it's actually a Marvel movie, But X-Men is kind of what started the golden age of superhero cinema, where we got, X-Men, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, which a lot of people are now starting to appreciate. And again, this really feels exciting to see them for what may be the last time. Part of the fear is I don't know if they're all going to be killed on screen. As I've said before many times, do we really want to see Professor X and Cyclops and Magneto go out again on screen? I don't know. But, that's what we have to face. I was excited to see Mystique doing an action scene there with Yelena. That looks to me like classic Mystique, and it looks like a classic fight scene. It took me immediately back to X-Men, the first one with Logan and Mystique fighting, and she looks like Logan, and they're fighting. It kind of feels like the same thing there to me. And, one of the things I wasn't crazy about, I guess they're going with Channing Tatum as Gambit. And honestly, it felt like a joke in Deadpool meets Wolverine, or whatever that movie's called. I didn't really buy that, oh yeah, he's going to be our legit X-Men Gambit from Fox, but I guess technically he was on the docket for so long that they feel they owe it to him, to make him the actual Gambit from Fox. I don't know. I wasn't crazy about that. Wasn't crazy about Namor. Apparently they're bringing Namor back in, Namor. All right. You know what I mean? You built him up. He's a classic character. He predates almost every superhero in the Marvel pantheon. I don't know exactly what order they were created, but I mean, he's possibly second in creation only to Captain America and the original android Human Torch. So, involve him, but let's just not make him that, crazy Latino guy again. And, we got the new Avengers, which again, I wonder if they're going to be cannon fodder for the most part. I mean, I think Bucky and Yelena are pretty safe, but I mean, a lot of these other guys could easily go down. We've got Sam still wearing the Captain America suit and the shield. I don't know. If they try to take the shield and identity away from Sam now and give it to Steve, they'll have the NAACP on them, and I don't think Marvel's going to deal with that. Honestly, they won't. So that's another thing I'm not crazy about. We've got Steve is back basically in a t-shirt and jeans, and don't nobody want to see him like that. I don't care who you are. Everyone wants to see him suit up again. Now, the good news is I'm pretty sure they're going to suit him up again at some point. I don't know exactly how that's going to happen. If anything, it might happen in Secret Wars, because you kind of have I think the impetus is going to be on them, like, to close big. And I don't know. I just don't see them giving him back the costume in this movie. He kind of looks different here. He's got the beard again, and then the sort of the mullet. I don't know. He looks like he hasn't worked out in like 10 years, Chris Evans. Maybe that's why he looks a little different to me. I don't know, but he looks so different. A lot of people are starting the rumor that, he's evil, or I don't know if he's the same Steve, or, he's this parallel universe Steve, the way that, Robert Downey Jr. is Doom. Could it be? I don't know. I haven't looked at any of the rumors for this movie because, one, I don't want to be spoiled to begin with, but moreover, I don't think any of them are true. I think a lot of it is people dreaming up something and then they try to run with it like, oh, I heard, I've got sources that say. Most of the time that's nothing. It doesn't really amount to nothing. It's just an educated guess from someone that has like maybe a proclivity of wanting something to happen. Again, we see the Fantastic Four, which, I like this cast. I said I liked Fantastic Four First Steps. Pedro Pascal, notwithstanding, I don't mind him. I could deal with him as Mr. Fantastic going forward. I don't like the way they made the Thing so short. I think he's basically shaking hands with M'Baku. Is that his name? And he looks like he's even shorter than him. And, everybody wants to see the Thing throw hands with the Hulk. And the Hulk will step on Ben Grimm, I am sorry to say, with this, incarnation they've given him, this height that they've given him. He's supposed to be pretty much, I wouldn't say the same size as the Hulk, but they're comparable, And since they made the Hulk, like, I don't know, 7 feet plus, they've got Ben maybe looking like he's 6'1". And, that ain't going to fly. So hopefully that'll be, dealt with in some way. Again, we got the Wakanda Warriors back. We got Shang-Chi. I liked the Shang-Chi movie. I didn't think it was bad. I always said that I think Shang-Chi is like the weakest part of that movie. He's not really a compelling hero. His sister is more interesting. His father is more interesting. You could just go down the line of all the characters. But, I think it's good to involve him with this because, again, this is sort of like what's expected to be an all hands on deck movie. And you want to see everybody show up within reason, of course. I'm still hoping we get Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. I don't know if that's going to be in Secret Wars. It could be that they're holding them for that. That's about it, really. I mean, like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic still. I mean, because I honestly didn't like Endgame. I honestly didn't like it. I was not happy with it at all. So to just sort of give them the benefit of the doubt because, the Russos know what they're doing. And, well, they had a pretty good setup with Infinity War. But when it came to Endgame, I don't know. The comedy was too broad. The fates of a lot of the heroes, I just didn't like. I don't like killing off our heroes. And I have a feeling this is what's going to happen to a lot of them here. Now, again, if you want an impact death and you want to take out somebody, that to show that the stakes are high, but it can't be somebody that we really care about. You know what I mean? I don't want to see Ant-Man get killed and go out on a spear. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't really want to see the classic X-Men get killed and go out on their shields and so on. You know what I mean? So if they're going to kill some of the new Avengers, they killed, I don't know, maybe some of the Wakandans there. I don't remember what's that woman's name. That's sort of the sergeant at arms or whatever. You know what I mean? If one of those kind of side characters goes down, Red Guardian, I mean, all right, you kind of made your case for, oh, the stakes are high. Someone's gonna go down before this movie's over. But nah, I don't really want to see that. Yeah, we gotta look at Doom, the mask, and everything looks great. A lot of people are freaking out about the jackets on the Fantastic Four. I don't know why that should bother people. I mean, I imagine once they go into like combat mode, they're probably going to take them off. But I mean, I was joking on Twitter. I don't know if people took me seriously, but I was saying probably on their Earth is a warmer climate, so when they come to this Earth, they get cold easily. But again, with the rumors of Cap being evil, he still holds the Mjolnir, so I don't really know if that's going to happen. I don't see why he would be able to hold that. Honestly, I like Thor better with Mjolnir. I don't like Stormbreaker. I mean, I'm glad that they involved it at some point in this storyline, but they could honestly just if they had what's that guy's name with the donkey looking guy, they could have just gave it to him. I can't remember his name right now. All right, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you excited for Avengers Doomsday, or are you like some of these people that are like too cool for school and like, oh, this looks terrible. It looks like CGI or AI fest or whatever. How do you think you're going to get, worlds exploding and crackling lightning from the cosmos and this and that if you don't have? I mean, I can understand for a smaller picture, a smaller theme picture. This is an event. You know what I mean? People complaining about CGI and crap like that. Just sit down and be quiet. You know what I mean? I really don't have patience for a lot of these people anymore. Everybody's so miserable nowadays. You can't be excited about anything. Man of Tomorrow is coming out next year. On the other side, in DC, we're going to have Superman. We're going to have, Supergirl, her movie not being a huge hit, notwithstanding. We're going to have apparently Jon Stewart in it, possibly Wonder Woman. We're going to have like another event, DCU style, on the other side, and people are poo-pooing that and complaining about that. Over here, we got the same thing going on in the MCU, and we got people complaining about that. It's like what I've always said. They never happy. Fandom is never happy anymore. I don't know what it is. I mean, it's possibly, the woke years, as I've said before, have jaded many a soul, but there's no excuse for, if you're a superhero fan, a comic book fan, there's no excuse for not being interested in either of these movies, because they both sound really exciting. Now, they could crash and burn. As I said, I wasn't a fan of Endgame. They could bring that same energy here and still fail. But again, you kind of have to give it that opportunity to rise or fall on its own. And a lot of people don't even want to do that anymore. And it's sad. It's frankly very depressing. But let me know what you think in the comments below. And, I'm pretty excited about it. I mean, it got the juices flowing. I'm not going to lie. I was excited. But again, this is only the entry trailer. I mean, they really didn't show us anything that we didn't already know. So, and that's another thing that cracks me up. We have a lot of people on Twitter in my feed. Half the people are acting like, well, they showed everything. It's like they should have kept a lot of stuff for the reveal. They, save Steve Rogers for the reveal. Save Robert Downey Jr. for the reveal. You're not going to sell tickets that way. Nobody's going to come to see some unknown, actor behind Doom versus Thor. I'm sorry to say, that's probably not going to print tickets. And then the other half are acting like, don't show us any more than this. Don't, you've shown too much. I don't know. I mean, it's like one way or the other. If you keep everything for a surprise, what's going to happen is nobody is going to go and see it, because nobody's going to want to see it. And we're kind of like going through this with Spider-Man Brand New Day, because Spider-Man Brand New Day, people still don't know who Sadie Sink is playing. Is she playing Jean Grey or not? Now, if she turns out to be playing Jean Grey, then that was spoiled the day we learned Sadie Sink was in the movie. You can't keep things secret. Somebody was going to find out that Robert Downey Jr. was wearing the Iron Man mask. Somebody was going to find out that Chris Evans was in the movie. You're not going to be able to do that in this internet age. Somebody's always going to find out. It's not a case of like The Empire Strikes Back when 3 people knew Vader was Luke's father, and if one of them spilled the beans, they would know who it was. In this case, somebody's going to find out, and it would be on the internet the next day. I'm still wondering about Sadie Sink. I'd like to know exactly how that's going to pan out, because Marvel has been very suspiciously mum about who her character is. Nobody has said, or in any official sense, who she's playing. And they even made a joke about it with Sadie Sink doing a clip where she was saying she can guarantee she's not playing Spider-Man or Aunt May or something. But the funny thing is like the fandom pretty much declared she was Jean Grey from the beginning. Now, I really hope she isn't Jean Grey, because then they will have successfully kept a secret from us in this digital age where that's not really possible anymore. All right, so there you have it for the Avengers Doomsday trailer, and feels like we're getting stuck here with the internet. So if I'm not coming through perfectly here, let me know in the comments, and we will continue on. But first, I'm going to take a brief break to remind you the Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye is coming out, and boy, it's a lot of work. I'm still doing a lot of work. It's getting done quickly at this point, but the thing is there's still a lot of lettering to be done. I've got to finish up the coloring. I've got a few panels I want to show, but again, tonight's show started coming together so fast with a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about. I don't have time to debut them on the live stream, so I'm going to try to put some of those images on Twitter in the coming days. It's tough to decide which images to show, because it's the same thing as putting together a trailer. You really don't know what you want to save as a surprise, as sort of like an impact moment. And then there's times when you want to show something that makes people excited to get the book. So it's kind of on the fence still what I'm going to release, what I'm not. But this is the cover. This is our groovy cover where General Diesel is threatening Bullets Bourbon and his friends. I fixed this cover, by the way. I didn't update the file here. So I got to fix this because I don't like the way box look that Bullets is leaning on. So I fixed that box. But anyway, General Diesel and the battery pack are threatening Bullets Bourbon and his friends, Horatio T. Scotch, as you see on the left, and Veronica Sinclair, who's perched on Cecil's shoulders. And the idea here is that Bullets is poisoned. He does not have his full strength, and he's facing his most dangerous foe, who has the strength of 10 men. How's he going to duke it out? Is he going to be able to duke it out? Is he going to survive long enough to duke it out? Now, his friends Joe and Chubby are trying to effect a cure with Dr. Stewart, who is the brilliant young head of the crime labs. But can they effect a cure in time before Bullets has to duke it out with the fiendish General Diesel? Now, if you have any compassion for the channel, any compassion toward me whatsoever, please check the link in the description below. Please check out the Adventures of Bullets Bourbon either on Global Comics or on Indie Planet, where you can get basically the whole first season, as we call it, the first season, which is we have 5 stories. 3 of them are in trade paperback if you want it that way, but the other 2 story arcs are in individual issues still. And this one is the beginning of our 2nd season, and we're in the middle of it, smack dab in the middle of the Against All Odds arc. And again, I want to spend some more time talking about this one, but we are going to have to move along quickly here. But like I said, please, if you want to support the channel, like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you comment. I always enjoy commenting, responding to comments. So we've got a mailbag segment coming up next for the comments that I've gotten, which most of them I wish I haven't gotten, but we'll read those in just a second. But check out the Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. It's going to be a doozy, this arc that we've got coming up. And we're going to get to the final act in this 3-act arc coming up as soon as possible. And while I wet my whistle, you can check out this trailer for the Against All Odds arc right now. All right, isn't that exciting? Boy, too much excitement for one day, if you ask me. But we've got a mailbag segment, which is always a thrill. It's always a thrill when I hear from you fine people. I am really, really excited about this. I just can't tell you. All right, so mailbag. Let's see. I got to bring up my notes. All right. Now, this charming lady named Arden Brooks 9657 left me this comment on my it was the live stream where I was talking about I didn't write down what live stream this was from. This is when I was talking about the cast for Resurrection of the Christ and the new actor playing Jesus. And this lady said, maybe learn the correct spelling and pronunciation of his name before you waste our time misleading everyone. This video offered nothing. Boy, she sounds like a real sweetheart. Look, lady, what are you, the Walter Cronkite of YouTube? I mean, I do the best I can. I read the guy's name. It's a very Swedish sounding name. I didn't pronounce it correctly, probably on the first 2 or 3 times. It happens, I mean, go chase yourself. You know what I mean? If you don't like it, do your own show. Get your own broadcast. You know what I mean? I don't know. These people, they drive me crazy. Here's another one. I did a short talking about the Supergirl movie, which I wasn't that crazy about. Now, I know that was like a source of controversy because everybody bashed that movie. 3 years before it came out, people were bashing it. And it's very sickening because there's all kinds of factions coming against it. There's people who hate Gunn. All right. There's people who hate the DCU because they're Snyder Bros. There's people who just want to bring down the DCU. There's people that are just trying to bash Millie Alcock. I mean, it was just the biggest crap up that I've ever seen in my life, that movie. And the whole thing was like a non-starter anyway, because the movie wasn't that good. It really wasn't. And some people like it. Some people don't like it. We're going to talk about that in a minute with the Odyssey, which I was trying to keep myself from talking about for the longest time, but I'm going to give my 2 cents. No, I haven't seen it. But this person named Dad Google commented, nobody cares what you think, much less what movies to see. And this is another guy. I mean, I obviously own you and live in your mind rent-free if you spent 2 minutes to type this poorly spelled sentence out to me because you didn't like what I had to say about the movie. And what is it with you guys? Come on, let's up our game a little bit here. Let's try to use those brain cells. And if you don't like what I have to say, just go on with your day. That's the problem with this world. Everybody is looking to be offended, looking to be insulted. Why should what I say offend you? It's my opinion. And again, we're going to talk about in a second with art being subjective. All right, now this next person, I don't know if I'm going to say this name right again. I don't want to anger Arden Brooks anymore. But this person's name, Mylilial, MYLIAHILL 2320. And she, I guess he or she, I'm not going to guess your gender, but had a comment on the same video about the resurrection of the Christ. And they said, it's going to be amazing, over-the-top masterpiece, blockbuster. Thank you, Mel, for your hard work. So, again, that was a popular video. I mean, I didn't get a ton of views, but the people that watched it apparently were really excited about it one way or the other, because I got some decent mail out of it for the mailbag. Again, yeah, I'm looking forward to Resurrection of the Christ. Like I said, I'm not sure I'm going to see it in theaters because it's going to be trippy probably. And I'm not much for the trippiness, but I will see it eventually on streaming and stuff. So there's your mailbag. There's your mailbag segment. Please, everybody, let's all try to get along, huh? Let's try to all love each other and not be poo-poo heads. Yeah. All right. Anyway, let's go on to our next topic here now. And again, as I said, I really didn't want to talk about the Odyssey because I have zero interest in this. Honestly, I have zero interest in this. Now, I'm not well versed in Homer and the Greek classics. I mean, I've seen Clash of the Titans. Ironically, I've seen the Ahmad Asante version, the miniseries, I think it was. I remember watching that back in the 90s. I mean, that was like 30 years ago. I honestly couldn't tell you too much about it, to be honest. I mean, I think I've seen the I watched the Cliff Notes version. I read the Cliff Notes version in middle school or whatever too. I've got a familiarity with the subject, but it's not something that I'm well versed in. So, just laying the groundwork there for starters. But again, this has become a sort of a target of the culture war, and everybody's talking about it. So I got to weigh in, I guess, with my 2 cents. Now, what Christopher Nolan has done here is basically checked every woke box in the bag, just to make sure that this is Oscar worthy. And a lot of people have seen right through it that this is like a culture war statement, that, these kind of things are still going to be done in a post-woke world where Donald Trump has won and we're all kind of healing from the wounds of the DEI, ESG, Obama era policies that have sunken so much of our favorite entertainment. And again, I come down kind of in the middle on this because I know a lot of people that are excited to see this. I don't want to shame them. And I know a lot of people that, hate this with every fiber of their being. And I'm pretty much with you there. To me, on the one hand, it's sort of like Shakespeare. It's a classic story. It's been around hundreds of years, thousands of years, potentially, I guess. It's like Shakespeare in that there are like 400 versions of this on film you could probably go find right now. And you'll find a better version than this if this is what is going to upset you. Having Elliot Page play a soldier, having Zendaya play Athena, and any of the other woke castings. if that bothers you, there is other options. It's not like something like where I would be really angry with something like, Supergirl. Let's just take that one. Like, all right, I went to bat for Millie Alcock saying, look, she might not be your dream version of Supergirl, but she looks like the character. They didn't race change her. They didn't, put a trans actor in there or anything. You know, if they had done that with Supergirl, I would say, well, look, there's only one other Supergirl movie in existence, and it frankly wasn't very good. Honestly, I think it was probably better than this one because I'd rather have a Supergirl that acts like Supergirl in a bad movie than a Supergirl that doesn't really act like the classic Supergirl in a bad movie. So, I mean, there's no winner there pitting those two movies against each other, but I digress. But it's what I mean is like, when they made Leonardo DiCaprio in a modern day Romeo and Juliet, I didn't see it because I didn't have any interest in that. And I'm a Shakespeare fan. I had no interest in that. But I didn't feel like it shouldn't exist because I could go back and watch the Franco Zeffirelli version, the probably best version there is out there. I also like the 1930s version that had, I think, was it Leslie Howard and Norma Shear. That's a great version too. That one actually gets a little more into the story, I think, a little more detailed. But in the same way, if you want to see, like, in this day and age, I know like Denzel Washington did Macbeth. Denzel Washington's a great actor. Do I want to see him play Macbeth? Sure, why not? I've already got like 5 or 6 other versions that I could queue up right now that watch that are, more accurate, but let him do his thing, So, I mean, I don't really begrudge if someone is making an old time movie like this and trying to, make it for quote unquote modern audiences. The problem with this one is, and the reason why I'm leaning more on the other side, is that this is basically just woke pandering. I mean, I don't really see where Nolan decided to do these things, like Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy. You can't tell me he didn't do that for woke points. This is not a case of, well, let's just think outside the box. And what if we did this? What if we did that? No, basically he's chasing an Oscar, and basically he's putting in all these crazy stunt casting choices to facilitate that and to sort of, well, I don't know if he's so much doing it, but he's actively promoting that this stuff continue on, that you can keep stunt casting and doing, a woke framework and be rewarded for it. And I am not going to reward him for it. I am not going to come down on the side and say, you should give your money to this movie, because I don't think you should. I think that this is an old school, thumb in the eye of trying to show that get woke, go broke doesn't work. And the reason why it doesn't work is, honestly, it's never worked. It's never really worked well for us. We cried, go woke, get broke, or whatever, with the Star Wars sequel trilogy. They made over $1 billion every time. Captain Marvel, they made $1 billion. It doesn't really work out for us to say go woke, go broke. It really doesn't. And the reason why is normies don't care. Normies here, Christopher Nolan made a new movie. They want to see that movie. They don't care that it's woke. They don't care about the casting. They know that a acclaimed director is doing his version of a classic story, and they don't care. So when people are trying to force every single film into the culture war, these influencers don't have the pull they think they do. Now, nobody went to see Supergirl, not because they bashed Millie Alcock for a year to 2 years. Nobody wanted to see that in the normie community because nobody wanted to see a drunk Supergirl. Nobody wanted to see a Supergirl that looked like she never wore her costume and was unkempt. That's why. It didn't have anything to do with these guys thinking so much of themselves that they dedicate 37 videos to the topic. And the same thing here. Now, they could try to get a pelt with Supergirl. They're not going to get one here because this film is going to make money. This film is going to be successful on the back of Christopher Nolan, who is a reputable director. People want to see his films. So again, the culture war doesn't work out the way you want it to. The culture war doesn't work that way because normies will push the the success or the failure of a film. It won't be because of a culture warrior doing 37 videos about Brie Larson, 37 videos about Billie Alcock and what she said and how she offended us and why you should never support her again. I mean, honestly, there's a real mean spiritedness about this, and this is what bothers me the most because it's like a subset of the right wing, and everybody acts like, well, it's these conservatives. They're the ones that are doing this. Conservatives are not doing this. These are the culture warriors that are subset of conservatives. They're a genre unto themselves. They're not speaking for conservatives because they're a very mean-spirited group, and they are trying to punch down in anger. And I don't see that as anything. Now, here's an example. Now, I was going to say this on Twitter, but it was verbose, and I said, well, let me just say this on YouTube as part of the way I see it. But like, for instance, when Michael B. Jordan played the Human Torch in Fan Four Stick, that was a film I had no interest in seeing. I did not want to see a black Johnny Storm, and I didn't even see it. I didn't complain about it. I mean, I did like we all do when we see something's come out. I said, it looks terrible, and I just went on with my life. And Michael B. Jordan said, they're going to see it anyway about the fandom. And at the time, I was like, what a jerk. What does he think he's accomplishing saying this by basically spitting in the face of a lot of fans who are saying, this looks terrible. We don't want this. But you know what I didn't do? I didn't bash him like for another, I probably complained like for a good month or so, but I mean, I didn't bash him for the rest of his life. He's actually done other movies that I've liked. I liked him in the Creed series. He was great as Killmonger. I didn't keep a grudge trying to bash him to the last day of my dying breath. And that's exactly what happens with these culture warriors because, Brie Larson probably couldn't show her face for a good 3 years. Rachel Ziegler will probably never live down being a, ditzy doofus that couldn't help but run her mouth for Snow White. Millie Alcock, I don't think she even said anything half as bad as Rachel Zegler. But again, these people are not going to be able to work anymore. And that's kind of what we have with these right-wing, I guess, culture warrior influencers, is that it's the new cancel culture. And that's what I've never liked cancel culture, no matter who does it, no matter which way it's done. Nobody should be forced to not work or leave their profession because they said something that somebody else didn't like. You can not like what Michael B. Jordan said. You cannot like what Rachel Zellweger said. You cannot like what Millie Alcock said. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't ever work again. And again, that's the problem. That's the real problem there. All right, so let me know what you think about the Odyssey. Are you interested in this? I did see Troy, and I would recommend that movie, although I saw Troy, which would Brad Pitt and the gorgeous Diane Kruger, who I always wanted to be the Invisible Woman back in the 2000s. That is a better film, I would think, for your time than this, from the reviews that I've heard. I seen it on cable, so I still have my Christianity cred, because back then, at least on cable, they would cut out the nudity and the violence, the gore. So I would recommend it if you can do that. If you can't do that, well, then it's up to you. It's on your conscience. But I remember watching it and I liked it. I really enjoyed that version of the story. I mean, that's not totally the Odyssey. That's more, I guess that's the Iliad and some of the Odyssey thrown in, something like that. But that was a legitimately enjoyable movie if you want something like that. So let me know what you think in the comments below about the Odyssey, if you plan on seeing it, if you are boycotting it, which, like I said, probably isn't going to work. But let me know in the comments below. Something else here that I want to talk about, a movie that you should see instead of the Odyssey, in my opinion, Young Washington, we're going to talk about now. Now, personally, I have always had an affinity for Washington because my family has always been, we're a early American family. And this is a true story. Actually, I have an ancestor that went back to Martha Washington. That's right. Of course, he only went back when George wasn't home. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, but I did see young Washington, and uh, my brother and I were seeing 1776 for the big 250th 4th of July, the big Independence Day bash. And we got a kick out of it. I've always loved that film. You know, it's a musical, of course, and it's, I guess, reasonably accurate to history. And then, of course, this movie came out around the same time, and we said, hey, you know, we're in a patriotic mood as it is, so let's check it out. Now, again, much like I said earlier, I'm not really a history wonk. You know what I mean? I don't really know a whole lot of the early years of George Washington, but that's where this movie comes in. It'll tell you all about it. And it has a great cast. I really liked this kid who played George Washington. Let me see my notes here. If I can find this guy's name. Let's see. William Franklin Miller. William Franklin Miller. Now, this guy, he seemed like he was born to play George Washington, young Washington. And it's a story that goes from the early days of his life, of course, being a youngster. His brother sort of takes him under his wing. We get to see him chop down a tree. They sort of put that in as a homage to the legend of he chopped down a cherry tree and said, "I cannot tell a lie," even though they didn't really go into that and make him actually say that. I kind of felt happy that they at least paid lip service to that. But this really was a great movie, and Angel Studios has put it out, and they've done a great job so far. This is the first Angel Studios movie I've seen, and my brother has seen a lot of them. He's seen the Reagan movie and the recent Jesus animated movie, but I really haven't followed them. But apparently, they are a sort of a conservative Christian studio that is still able to get movies made with, you know, some big name talent, which we'll talk about in a second, without, you know, getting hammered by the big studios, by them getting boycott and everything. And that's one of the great things about this film also, is that it's not tempered for modern audiences. You know how modern audiences are. They would like put an undue emphasis on things like slavery and the America-Indian relations. But not so in this case. I mean, you know, we still see the effects of slavery and it's wrong, but they don't like bash us over the head with it. The same thing with the Indian-American relations. They had to deal with the French-Indian War, and that's a big part of the film. And basically, it goes through all the stories of Washington as a surveyor. He starts out as a surveyor, checking out the wilderness. He works his way up into the militia. He has a romance with Sally Fairfax, who I knew he wasn't going to end up with. Spoiler, he winds up with Martha Washington. So yeah, he doesn't wind up with Sally. But that was interesting, you know, to see him as a young man. And it reminded me of 1776, where he's like a man of letters. The 1776 musical had like interludes where they're getting letters from G. Washington. And the film sort of boasts that he was very proficient as a letter writer, a man of words and letters. That was fun. Kelsey Grammer is in it as Thomas Fairfax, and he's a fun, likable character. Andy Serkis as Edward Braddock, who is probably not as likable, but you know, Andy Serkis really, like, he just owns any role he gets into. You know what I mean? He's like, you know, you can't keep your eyes off him no matter what role he plays. And of course, Ben Kingsley as Robert Dinwiddie, which again, he's another actor that I love no matter what he does, because it's fun to see when he's playing like a humorous character. And in this role, he's not, you know, particularly humorous, but he's sort of the, kind of a foppish paper pusher kind of guy that sends out the orders. And of course, this is back when George was not, you know, in the Revolutionary War, of course. This is while he was still working for the British government, and he has the battle. And I liked seeing that, you know, any other movie, you would probably see the high parts and just kind of leave it at that. But he has a battle that he actually loses, and he has to surrender to the French. And, you know, he goes back home and kind of is like, that's it, your career is over. You forfeited, you know, land, and you lost the battle. So you kind of feel like, you know, this is like a good, for anybody, a good inspirational tale. And of course, he ends up coming back. He rejoins, and he's always doing it for no salary either. He comes back and you know, wins against incredible odds. And again, it's just a really fun movie. It's an enjoyable movie. It's got the most breathtaking battle scenes since I've seen since Henry V, Branagh Henry V. That was like one of those kind of movies where you just wanted to pick up a sword and after you've seen the movie, just rush into battle. And it's the same thing here. Grab your muskets, boys. We're going into battle. And yeah, I mean, again, for what I know, it was pretty authentic to the period. Again, if you want to see something that's supporting this kind of non-woke business, and the Odyssey is not doing it for you, definitely check out George Washington, Young Washington, because again, I don't really even go and see these kind of movies, but I could just tell this had like a certain nobility about it. And you really need to see these movies. I mean, I know they're already greenlighting a sequel where it's going to show the Revolutionary War days, and I feel like that's something that's missing in Hollywood. We don't really do the founding father story. I mean, I like to see this as a trilogy. You know, let's see Young Washington, let's see Revolutionary War Washington, let's see President Washington. Show us some real good stories from our founding fathers. There really hasn't been a good one in a long time. I mean, I think there was a Jeff Daniels Washington movie. I watched that. I liked it. Like, again, this is like in the 90s, I think. I know there was a John Adams miniseries, which I've seen clips of. I don't have HBO Max, so I haven't been able to see that. But, you know, we get like some good stuff here and there about the founding fathers. We don't really get enough of it. And I feel like this should, by all rights, start a new craze for stories about the American history that we should all know and not take for granted, because these guys fought. I mean, at the end of this, I mean, Washington basically should have died like about 6 times. He gets shot in the hat and the coat, and his horse gets shot. There's like so many ways that he could have been killed. And it was basically divine providence, as they say, that kept him going for the good of the nation that was about to come, that he was going to usher in with the Revolutionary War. So again, definitely 5 stars out of 5. I would say an A, you know, on the grade scale. 9.5 out of 10, maybe. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of the ones that you cannot miss. If you're in the market to see any kind of movie, I would put this at the top of the list, and definitely check it out. Preferably while it's still in theaters, because, like I said, you could support it. But definitely, if you've missed it at this point, I know it's been out a couple of weeks. Definitely check it on, you know, DVD or streaming, whichever way you can find it. All right, and so let's move on now to, let's see, how many more stories do we got here to talk? All right, we'll talk about this one because I really wanted to bring this up, also talking about culture war and the battle for culture. The Hunt for Gollum, this being directed by, as we just mentioned, the great Andy Serkis. And a lot of people are also poo-pooing this movie because it's like, oh, you know, nobody can get excited about anything anymore. You know, I don't understand it. I mean, I know that we've gone through some bad times, you know, but certain movies like this, they're doing sort of a midquel. This is a film that's supposed to be between the Hobbit movies and the Lord of the Rings movies. Now, the idea is, to me, this kind of film either works or it doesn't. If it doesn't work, you can ignore it. If it does work, you've got another nice Lord of the Rings movie to put in your marathon. And so I don't understand why people are so upset about this. I think the Rings of Power show, and again, I don't have Prime, and when I did have Prime, I didn't watch it because everybody hates it. But it soured a lot of people on supplemental material for Lord of the Rings. Now the difference here is this has got the same brain trust behind it. It's got Peter Jackson's blessing, and again, it's got Andy Serkis in it. I don't see how this is going to be a disaster. They've got most of the original cast back, the ones that are appropriate for the story anyway. And Viggo Mortensen bowed out. I guess he has his reasons. I'm not sure exactly what they were, and so they had to recast him. Again, that's not necessarily a terrible thing. I mean, we wouldn't have had Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi if we never recast the Obi-Wan role. So again, it's not a terrible thing. So we got some copy here from Andy Serkis telling us about what's going on with the movie, and he talks about how they are not going to race change characters. They're not going to tick boxes, and this is where I think this is important, especially in an age when we're worried about that with our intellectual properties, like they did with the Odyssey. Andy Serkis was asked why his Lord of the Rings, the Hunt for Gollum cast is all white. And he says, I don't think we will be doing a politically correct just casting for the sake of casting and ticking boxes version of the film. Tolkien himself was influenced by a lot of Norse mythology. There's a lot of that feeling. The Shire feels very, very much like a very white, they're not very concerned about what goes on beyond the borders of the Shire. But they know they don't want people coming in. Yes, there have been criticisms about a lack of diversity. This particular film is somewhat acknowledging that, but I don't think we will be doing a politically correct, just casting for the sake of casting and ticking boxes version of the film. So that's where relevant, basically. There you go. Some people get it. Some people understand that the woke war is over. Woke is lost, and sensible people will do the sensible thing now. Where somebody's going to chase the Oscar and tick the boxes like Christopher Nolan for the Odyssey, yes, of course. People are still going to do these things here and there. But would he be able to do this 5 years ago, Andy Serkis, be able to make the Shire mostly white, predominantly white, because that's what Tolkien pretty much described the hobbits as? No. They would have had to change it. They would have had to, stunt cast. As it is, I know a lot of people are not too thrilled that they forced a female character into the Hobbit movies. Me, as I've always described myself, I'm always a, hands-off Lord of the Rings fan. I mean, I love the movies. I even like the Hobbit movies quite a lot, but I never really deeply dug into the lore. I've never read. I mean, I've thumbed through the books. You know what I mean? Like I said, when you're in middle school and you're supposed to read these things, you kind of go through them and you get a basic idea what it's about. But I've never immersed myself into the reading of Tolkien, and for my worse, I suppose. But I like the franchise. I would like to see more with it. And while we can still do that, while we still have Ian McKellen, who's able to, put on the hat and staff, let him do it, see if it'll work. Andy Serkis is still up for being Gollum, I suppose. And this should be a nice, like I said, midquel, something that you can put in the middle of the marathon, and hopefully it'll work out. He's got some more to say here. Andy Serkis said the Lord of the Rings Hunt for Gollum is only using AI for some of the de-aging. So again, this is where people are so worked up over, the AI is going to take over the movies. Well, you're not going to get a good fantasy movie without some kind of CGI trickery. I hate to break that to you. I know it's kind of a tough pill to swallow, but I'll continue on. There's a little bit of de-aging for some of the characters, and machine learning is part of the process. When you think about it, in the original Lord of the Rings films, Peter created Massive, which was a program which allowed thousands of orcs to all have their own individual mindset. So that is a brilliant example of an incredible use of AI. But we're not creating AI shots in our movie. Every shot is created in a traditional way. One of the things actually that I really wanted to do with this film was to bring back all of the great filmmaking skills, from miniatures to prosthetics, and marry them up. Because that's my taste. I like it when you mix up different filmmaking techniques. And I think that's the way to go. That's the way to do it. So Andy Serkis sounds like he is doing the right thing here by Lord of the Rings. Let me know what you think. Do you feel differently, or do you think this is going to be a success? I think so. I'm quite looking forward to it, actually, because I've never seen any of the Lord of the Rings films in theaters. This one might get me in because I don't know how many more chances we're going to get, quite frankly. I know they've got another story that they're trying to work on with Stephen Colbert, which, yeah, I'm not a fan of his, but if they can get something going with a good story, I mean, it's good to still keep things going on here with the Lord of the Rings franchise for as long as they possibly can. And now to our final story of the day, which was going to be our headlining story, because for some reason the Batman gets me a lot of views. I won't deny it. People like to hear about the Batman. I didn't like the movie. I thought it was boring. I thought it was crap, quite honestly. I thought it was overlong. I thought the casting was terrible in most cases. I didn't think Robert Pattinson was too bad. But same thing like Henry Cavill. I mean, you can have a guy that's all right for the part and just give him a bad script, and he can't really do anything about it, you know? So, I mean, Robert Pattinson, he might be okay if he had a better script, if he actually didn't look like he was going to go off and cry every 5 minutes, you know, the lonely brooder angst. I mean, that's not Batman to me. Could he play that differently? Possibly. All right, but we've got a lot of rumors about this film. We don't know really what's going to happen. Again, this is another one they're playing this film close to the chest, and I don't know exactly how much of this is true and how much is just rumor. I don't know who's outdoing who with the rumors. It's either the Batman, they've had Scarlett Johansson playing 15 different characters, or over in the MCU, they've got, like, I think every eligible blonde has been assigned Emma Frost. I've seen everything from Sydney Sweeney to Margot Robbie to, I don't know, 7 or 8 other up-and-coming actresses. And it feels like every week somebody is just making up a rumor saying, this is what's going to happen. This is what they're going to do. Supposedly, this rumor has been given a little credence in certain circles, so we'll talk about it. But I don't really get too much into rumor. Like I said, I really don't like to waste time talking about something that's probably not going to come to pass. But apparently, Scarlett Johansson will play a serial killer obsessed with plants who uses toxins to carry out her crimes. So basically a realistic ground level version of Poison Ivy, they're trying to say. I can guarantee you she's not going to look like this. If what the Riddler looked like was any indication, she's going to have a trash bag as a costume and a slicker. I can't see her possibly wearing anything like this. The studios are too woke. They just won't do it. And especially with Scarlett Johansson in the recent past acting like she's been exploited all these years. Yeah, she's not going to look like this. But again, there's no excuse in 2026 in this day and age to not have the fantastical elements in Batman. I am so sick of this stuff going on. And what aggravates me the most, if I was James Gunn, I would have axed Matt Reeves day one. The problem is money talks. Now, they can afford to axe Snyder, Snack Zider, because his movies never made anything. They never made a lot of money. They critically were panned. Nobody liked them except this little subsection of the fandom. the cult of Snyder that just likes anything, any excrement he craps out, they'll say it's gold. With Matt Reeves, he was more fortunate. He lucked out that he got the Batman, and Batman is a money printer no matter what. And you've got these Reeves acolytes who just live and die by the Batman. And so that's why Gunn couldn't axe it. But really, if I had my druthers and I was in Gunn's position, I would have axed Matt Reeves' plans for a Batman trilogy on day one, because he is holding up progress with the DCU Batman, because he keeps dragging his feet making these movies. Then when he makes a movie, it takes 10 years to make. And then when it comes out, it takes 10 years to make another one. The joke is, like, Robert Pattinson is going to play Batman Beyond. He's going to play old Bruce pretty soon, because literally the idea was that it was a year two Batman. And now Pattinson's, what, 40 years old or something? I mean, if this is supposed to be year three, my golly. But let me continue on with the copy. Her main target is Dance's character, the leader of a secret organization made up of the most powerful figures in the city, the Court of Owls. The rumor also mentions that Sebastian Stan is indeed playing Victor Zsasz, not Harvey Dent. So again, you know, they had a sweet setup here of making Sebastian Stan Harvey Dent. I mean, there's nobody looks more like Harvey Dent than Sebastian Stan. He's going to play Victor Zsasz. Victor Zsasz is like, you know what I mean? He is the bottom of the barrel for Batman. I mean, I think Nolan threw him in because Nolan has also got that fetish for a realistic Batman, the way Reeves does. And it's like, that's what I hated about Batman comics in the 90s. We actually, I said this on Twitter and it got a little pushback, but we actually have, now I'm forgetting the gent's name, but we actually have the 70s Batman to thank for that, because the comics in the 70s, not Neil Adams, the other fellow, Denny O'Neil. When Denny O'Neil made the Batman comics in the 70s, he took them back to basics. Now, that was a blessing and a curse, because in a way we were getting away from the 60s Batman, the jokey Batman, the Silver Age Batman, which was even further back, a little more crazy with, you know, Batman going to Planet X and seeing the Batman of Planet X or whatever. So what Denny O'Neil did was a good thing to try to ground Batman and focus Batman in the real world. Problem with that is Batman has the most colorful rogues gallery, you know, possibly, you know, side by side with the Flash in the DCU. And when you sideline characters like the Joker and the Riddler and the Penguin and, you know, Two-Face, you really are just having Batman versus the mob over and over and over again. And that becomes boring. Now, that to me is like a year one story. You do Batman year one and you do the mob. Then you got the Rise of the Freaks. It's kind of, you know, what they did with Batman Begins, I think. It was sort of, you know, and the mob carries on a little bit through The Dark Knight. You know, it was the first couple of years is the mob and then the Rise of the Freaks. And kind of the problem was Denny O'Neil, his idea of a Batman villain was Ra's al Ghul. And Ra's al Ghul is like a Bond villain. And you know what I mean? That you can't sideline these characters like the Joker and the Riddler and stuff for Batman. It just doesn't work. Because then we get stuck with characters like Victor Zsasz. Victor Zsasz kills people and puts a tally mark on his skin. That's what's passing for a colorful villain. That's what I mean. You can't, I go on another rant, I know, but you can't have Batman grow up with you. I'm sorry to say. You know, Batman existed in the 50s and 60s to sell lunchboxes, pajamas with a cape on the back. This is who Batman is. He's supposed to be a child accessible character. You're not supposed to be putting him against serial killers and, you know, the mob. There's only so much you can do with that, you know, and it's not interesting. And that's the reason why, as I've said many times before, the Batman has been on this wheel of pain where he has been given to auteur directors where they have done nothing but focus on realism when realism shouldn't even factor in to a Batman movie. I would just, any director that comes in should be asked 3 questions. Name your top 3 Batman villains. And if they are, Victor Zsasz is one of them, you're out. You know what I mean? If it's Victor Zsasz and Maroni and Falcone, you're out. If those are your 3 favorite Batman villains, you're out. Are you willing to put Robin in the movie? If you say no, that at any point, I mean, you don't have to start the first Batman movie. Okay, if you don't put Robin in the second movie, you're out. You're out. And for another question, I would probably do like, are you willing to put customizable Batman things? It's the costumes have to be looking. We can no more all black, no more all black Batman costume, no more Batmobile that doesn't have some kind of bat insignia on it. And this extends also, like I said, to the costumes of the villains. No smeared makeup on the Joker, but we get an accurate Joker. Poison Ivy has to look like Poison Ivy with a costume that looks like Poison Ivy. I was just listening to one of my favorite podcasts, or whatever you like to call them, is Chuck Dixon, his podcast there on YouTube. Shout out to him. I should send him a question, by the way. I can never think of what to ask him. So many people already ask questions I would ask him. But he said basically, Denny O'Neil forced him to kill Mr. Freeze because he hated Mr. Freeze because he's a sci-fi character. He's a colorful character. He's not something that you could do in real life. And, Chuck eventually brought him back sort of to the consternation of Denny O'Neil. But that's the problem. It's like he sort of set the groundwork there, and it was a blessing and a curse. Now, I mean, I would rather have a more colorful Batman if it means giving up sort of the gravitas of making Batman the patron saint of, fighting the mob or whatever. Ground level villains. Let's see. Johansson playing a version of Pamela Isley may lend credence to another recent rumor that DC Studios is developing a live-action Poison Ivy series set in the same universe as the Batman movies and HBO's The Penguin. So is Scarlett Johansson going to get her own, I don't know what you would call it, a mini-series, a sort of a one-season series? I don't know. I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. I don't really think they're going to go that far. But again, we shall see. We shall see. So, what do you think? Do you come down on the same case as I do about Batman? Do you like the more colorful aspect? Do you want to see a blue and gray costumed Batman in the DCU? Like I said, Reeves is what's holding back Gunn from making, because this is what I mean. It bugs me that a lot of people bash James Gunn for things beyond his control. Now he's going to take it on the chin for Lanterns. Lanterns doesn't look very good. The rumor is they're going to kill off Hal Jordan early on. I don't think it's going to be early on because I think they need him because they had too much of him in the trailer. That can't all be from the first episode. They're going to probably kill him at the end of the first season. What's probably going to happen is they'll turn him into Parallax so he won't be killed, and then people will be like, oh, see, they didn't kill him. They didn't kill him. I digress. I don't think Gunn had anything to do with that series other than, make some minor oversight to it, put in Guy Gardner because we got him in Superman. We got to have the connective tissue. I don't think he really had any kind of decision-making on that. And it's the same thing here. People blame Gunn. Why is he putting out a Supergirl movie when he could be putting out Batman and Wonder Woman? Well, Wonder Woman was a colossal flop. The Flash was a colossal flop. Look what happened with Green Lantern. Green Lantern was a colossal flop. What, in 2010? I forget when that movie came out, 2010 or 2011. They didn't do anything with him for like the last, 15 years until the Lantern show came out now, where they're doing a complete 180 on Hal Jordan. He's now a grumpy, middle-aged, cantankerous crank instead of being a laugh-a-minute Ryan Reynolds character. And it's going to be, the same problem as here. They're not going to take a chance on Wonder Woman when their last Wonder Woman flopped big time. The Flash, it had some, had some redeemable qualities, that movie. I still say it wasn't a bad movie. I just am not a fan of Ezra Miller, and that's never going to be my Flash. But The Flash wasn't horrible. But in order to do Wonder Woman, they're going to give her a backdoor pilot in Man of Tomorrow, I think. Batman, it doesn't matter. You can print money, but he's waiting on Matt Reeves, who is holding up all kinds of progress here while he's trying to do a War and Peace, Batman 2. He's taking 6 years to write the screenplay. He's going to start filming it now. With any luck, Gunn can do a Batman film in maybe 2 years. But the problem is we're waiting on Reeves to get things going. They're not going to have two competing Batman films coming out in the same year or in back-to-back years. There has to be some kind of buffer. And that's what we're waiting on. But Gunn gets the blame. Gunn gets the blame on everything. And again, I always say this. I'm the first person to say I'm not a huge James Gunn fan. I hate half as many of his movies I've seen as I've liked. He's done some great movies. I thought Superman was good. I thought Guardians, the original one, was good. I like Guardians 3 a lot. And I didn't like Scooby-Doo. I didn't like that newer Suicide Squad movie. I didn't like, certain things I won't even see, like the Peacemaker show. So, it's a crapshoot with him if it's going to be good or not. But I think people are so desperate for him to fail for some reason. And again, like I've said before, if he fails, what's going to happen? You're going to have a new Batman movie like every 3 or 4 years. And Superman's going to be relegated to like once every decade. They'll try to resurrect the character. You're not going to do anything else with the DCU. And people are like, well, they're going to sell off. They're not going to sell off their characters. They're not going to license their characters. You kidding me? Warner Brothers had all these characters at their beck and call for years, decades. They never licensed them to anyone. They're not going to give their characters to somebody else. They're going to keep them and they're going to use them. But if enough films fail, they're not going to keep trying to put these characters in movies. They're not going to do a Green Lantern or a Flash. You're just going to see Batman. You're just going to see Superman every couple of years because Superman's still relevant as much as he doesn't get the respect he should, but he'll still come out with a movie every 10 years or so. But you're not going to see anything else. It's the same thing with Marvel. Marvel isn't going to have their characters leased. You kidding me? Marvel only leased their characters because Marvel was going under, the Marvel company. Now Disney owns them. Disney doesn't share anything for beans. They worked out an arrangement to get Spider-Man brought into the fold, and that's the most they're going to do. They still won't even do a solo Hulk film because they don't want to share money with Universal, who has distribution rights. You mean to tell me they're going to lease characters back to other studios? Not going to happen. Not going to happen. So all these people complaining and crying and acting like get James Gunn out and, get Kevin Feige out and stop with the DCU, stop with the MCU. You'd rather have nothing. I don't really understand that kind of reasoning because what we're getting is not that bad. The most recent stuff we've gotten is actually very good. And I mean, the last two offerings, from the MCU last year were very good. And Superman from DCU was very good. I don't see why there is this kind of panic and this kind of commotion over these things because you're allowed to drop the ball once in a while, like in the case of Supergirl. You're allowed to, have a couple of misfires in a franchise. You can't just drop the ball and go home. You know what I mean? And a lot of people acting that way, it's just detrimental to the cause. It's just detrimental to what we're trying to do here. You know what I mean? People, you have to try to enjoy things in life. It seems like everybody is determined to hate everything these days. But again, I guess I'll go on another rant there some other time. I digress. Let me know what you think in the comments below about any of the myriad of wonderful things we talked about today. We've gone on long enough. I think I've kept you fine people as long as I possibly can. But with a parting thought, with a nod of the head and a wink, I could refer you to my website down below, The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye. And check out the link in the description for my Twitter page. And it'll keep you all up to date with all the new stuff that's coming out about the book. I'm going to try to get some images up on Twitter. Check out the website where you can get the links to where you can buy the books on Global Comics. You can get the digital downloads. You can go to Indie Planet if you want the actual hard copies, which I really would prefer you guys get, because I like to see a real book in people's hands. I'm going to try to do some appearances, and I haven't done some appearances in a couple of years, and I want to shake some hands and sell some copies to some of you good folk. And I hope this book will be out by the time I do that, by the end of the year sometime. But again, that still remains to be seen. All right, so until next we meet, this is Johnny Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.